All right, welcome to the Strong Life Coach podcast, where we speak life, coach life, write life, and lead life. Today, we're joined in the podcast studio by Johnese Garcia. Johnese, welcome to the show.
Hi, Derek. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right. So I want to make sure people tuning in know who you are and your background. So let's go over your bio. If I'm off with anything, feel free to jump in and correct me.
Sounds good.
All right. So you graduated from New Mexico State University with a degree in government with an emphasis in law and society.
That's correct.
All right. We have 4 years as a student supervisor for University Hospitality Services. We have 3 years at Texas Roadhouse with as a local sales marketer and catering lead.
That's correct.
Then you were a store manager at a retail boutique store where you had some experience marketing, branding, and with social media. Mm-hmm. Then you have 4 years of retail operations manager in one of the largest hospitality organizations in the world, where you everything from fine dining to facilities maintenance.
Correct.
And then you have 2 years experience with your own business with the Garcia Catering Company, where you help cater weddings, youth banquets, nonprofit events, and graduation parties.
That's correct.
On top of all that I've already mentioned, you also have 11 years of experience with the singing in your local church with the worship team.
That's also correct.
All right. You're a person of many talents, and I'm grateful for your time on the show.
Thanks, Derek.
So I do want to know, when did you first know you wanted to be involved with catering?
So in college, I started attending a small group with a local church there, which I eventually became a part of. Mm-hmm. And one of the students who was also a member, his name is Nathan Martinez, and he was receiving a degree in hotel, restaurant, and tourism management. Mm-hmm. At that time, my degree was already, my degree schedule was government. I was going to be a lawyer. I had all of these plans. But I had been in food since I was 14, and here I was 19. I just really love hospitality in general. Mm. And as he shared, what his degree was, I was dumbfounded that was even something that I could receive a degree in. So I did change my degree plan to hotel, restaurant, tourism management. But due to my father being sick, I wasn't able to complete one of the requirements for that specific degree plan. So I changed it back to government and ended up minoring.
I see. And when you shared the story, it reminds me of, because sometimes, I know for me, you don't know what you want to do, but then you hear somebody else that they're doing it or they're trying to do it, and it gives you some motivation, some inspiration to try something out, And I think when you heard about Nathan's degree plan, and you're like, well, and you go, wait, you could actually do that? You could actually do that as your profession, and it caught your attention. I think it's a powerful people principle, again, for people tuning in to hear that. And sometimes it's somebody else is living your dream. I know,
right?
One of my buddies who tunes into me, as we podcast, he's tuning into me and he's telling me he wants to do it, but just he was telling me I'm the only person in his circle that does it. So he was over here looking at the studio and looking at everything. But sometimes it takes somebody else, doing what you want to do for us to be able to get that vision.
That's right.
So when was the first time you catered an event?
The first time I catered an event, I was 14 and I was working for a local barbecue place in my small town of Moriarty, New Mexico. And it was just a business, just a business lunch. And I got to go with the owner. She took me, and I thought it was just the coolest thing, being able to serve our food in on an offsite location, and experience, 50 to 60 people. I mean, it was a smaller catering, so 50 to 60 people that we were serving all at one time.
So this is a barbecue restaurant?
Correct.
What was the name of it?
Shorty's Barbecue.
Shorty's Barbecue.
Yeah.
So Shorty's Barbecue gave you a taste of catering, but even at that point, the vision wasn't complete that, hey, this is something I want to do. It still took you later when you were in college to figure out, this is something I actually want to be involved with.
Correct.
And I do want to circle back to something you said about in the dream switch. And I think that's relevant for people, right? Because you briefly mentioned this vision for being an attorney, right?
Yes.
And then you were catching this different vision. So I know you mentioned some of it, but I'm curious. What was happening there? Like, for somebody to give up on one dream, that's a big deal,
right?
But like, what moved? I guess what changed for you to go, all right, it's time for me to switch my dream?
Yeah, I think being able to experience high profile catering at the university level, during the month of October, which, there's homecoming that during that time, as well as what we call the Tough Enough to Wear Pink week. And the banquets that are catered, the attendees in the skybox for, these big games, these big home games, along with just the attention to detail and the decoration, even just at the cafe level, and the involvement in the campus as a whole, just really pushed me to see like, wow, my dream really is to put on these large food service events that bring not only joy to people, but they have a certain level of stress associated with them. Like, really, everything that you're doing right now, this is ride or die. You're not doing surgery, but I mean, it could be the difference between your career or your contract, now or later.
Right. So there's a certain kind of stress that you liked associated with it.
Yes.
Because sometimes when I hear about what you're doing, like the idea of feeding 4 people, to me is stressful, right? But then you're doing some of these events that it's not just 4, not just 40, not even just 400. And I know we'll circle back to the largest event you've done, but there is some stress associated with that.
Absolutely.
But it's kind of interesting, right? Like in my world, in the motivational speaking world, I'm in front of people a whole lot. Of people look at that and go, oh, that seems stressful, and people get worried about it. But it's interesting because based on your calling and that dream or that vision or even that gift set, you could look at somebody else's and go, whoa, like I would never, ever, ever want to do what you do. Right. But there's plenty of people that tell me, man, I would never, ever, ever want to do what I do either. Right. But there's something powerful about that. And I like how you mentioned how much you love the idea of bringing people together. I think that's part of your personal brand. Like, when I know you as a friend, you're somebody who loves having people in your home, right?
Absolutely.
And but I love seeing how that it's not just you at work, but it's you using that in your personal life as well. Again, I know we'll circle back on that one, but I wanted to make sure people knew that that's one of your greatest, I think, gifts that you contribute to the people around you, and it's something I really appreciate about you. Appreciate that. So let's talk about what's the biggest event you've ever catered?
So the largest event I've ever catered was 1,600 people. We fed the entire building. But the largest high-profile event that I've ever catered was 1,000 people. And it was actually my current client. It was their holiday party last year. And the level of fine dining expectation, number of stations, not just food on the food service side, but also, the beverage side as well. So 6 or 7 I think it was 7 bars,
wow.
8 different food stations, on top of that, everything needed to be bussed, everything was bussed. I had to order in all of the china, the liquor, the glassware, everything had to be ordered in, on top of having to create a floor plan to execute, this event that our day-to-day customers, they look forward to the most.
Wow. I think I get stressed just listening to everything that goes into it, right? Because like for me, in my perfect world, it's like, all right, somebody puts together an event, they figure out the chairs, the seating, the audio, the everything, and I just show up and speak. Right. But like what you do, to me, it's such a powerful thing because you're working with so many people. I think your gift of leadership is also at work, because it's literally impossible for you to do by yourself, right? Correct. So there's so many people you're influencing to help get the job done, which is crazy. Now, do you ever ask yourself, like, am I crazy for even doing this right here, right now for 1,000 people?
Absolutely. Especially when you're working like 30 hours of overtime, continuing to maintain your social life, your spiritual life, and even your private life, being married, making sure that I'm still, taking care of my home. Sometimes it's really like, am I doing the right thing? Like, should I be doing something else? And then once the event is, in full swing and you see the success, like driven behind this 2-hour event that took months to plan, yes, and hours to execute, being able to see the joy of your customers just it makes it worth it. That's what makes it
Yes.
worth it. Or receiving personal emails from the event planners that we work directly with, and just their praise of our execution as a team as a
Yes.
whole. It makes it worth it as a words of affirmation person. So
I love it. Now, and after the event, that's probably the best feeling in the world. It's done.
yes, it's done. Actually, to be honest with you, the best feeling is during the event. I don't like the cleanup.
Okay, right. 'Cause
I
that's part of the
don't-
role too.
Right. So making sure everything is picked up again. Because for me, most people prefer the cleanup because it really is the easier side of the job.
Mhm.
But I feel like all my energy has been released or used in the planning, in the setup, in the follow-up. But to bring it to a close, I'm like, I'm done.
Yes.
I got to do it.
It's a long
Got to
night.
make it happen. Yes, absolutely. I think it was an 18-hour day that day.
Woo.
So
Wow. Again, appreciate what you do, and I'm glad I don't have to do it. And every time there's like something to plan, I'm like, hey, somebody else has to be around me that can do this. It's not an area of gift. But I'm again glad people like you are here to do it. I know you touched on this already. Let me ask you,
sure.
what's the most rewarding part? If it's something you mentioned already, or is there a nuance to it? The most rewarding part for you doing this, like this catering, hospitality, bringing people, what's the most meaningful part for you?
It's the relationships that are built, mixed with the trust, that as I work with a very specific client, day to day, and being able to maintain transparency and trust of, even if an event doesn't go exactly how we planned it to go, and there are definitely opportunities that arise in every situation, but being able to go to my client, to be able to go to my client and say, hey, this is what happened. This is how we fixed it, or this is, the end result, and knowing that the transparency there in my day-to-day life, really builds for trust, in other situations or in other opportunities as we grow.
Yes, I love that. I think about the relationships, and even what you said, when it's done with excellence, trust is built. And I know, from building business, like trust and likability are huge pieces of somebody willing to do business with me. If there's not trust, why for any reason would they give me a microphone, or would they give me an opportunity to coach them individually, or would they trust me or would they empower me to influence their team or their sales leaders, or whoever it is. But trust is so huge, but you only get trust by being consistently effective.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's awesome. I love hearing that the most rewarding part for you is the relationships. How do you use the gift of catering and event planning in your personal life?
My husband and I work together to help create menus or just events for some of our friends that may, or even acquaintances, like through our local church, that everyone has a budget. We all want to be wise with the money that we have, and unfortunately in the wedding world is specifically, or just in, some of these youth events, food can be the most expensive aspect. It's usually like food and photography are your top two.
Right.
And so as we've grown, as we've built relationships with people, and I've been able to share my gifts, it's really about, how can we create a menu that's going to meet your budget, meet your expectations, and on top of that, make sure that it's beneficial on both sides. There's still some level of profitability there, but without gouging prices. There shouldn't be, like, food shouldn't be so expensive that it makes or breaks whether or not someone can have a really nice wedding, or even if students can have a great prom. And one of the youth events that we had the privilege of catering this year was the prom for our local church, the church that we're members of, and we really loved being able to serve our teens, both the upperclassmen and the lowerclassmen. And for us, the excitement of delving into having 2 separate menus at 2 separate price points, but giving them some level of fine dining experience on the upperclassmen side, when these students may have never experienced something like that, or they're not sure, what to expect.
Right. I love that. I love, I like that you hit the point where it's not about providing free service. And again, free is, there's a great time for free. But there's also so much of your energy and like the gift that you have cultivated over the years. It's valuable in the marketplace. But making sure you're compensated and taken care of, but then also being a source for providing the service at a reasonable reasonable rate, where everybody can win.
Yes.
Now tell me about some of the creative ways that you've used this gift, right? So you talked about, right, banquets, weddings. How have you used creativity with this gift?
Well, one of my favorite events that my husband and I put on in our home is our annual New Year's party. And so we started this probably the New Year's after we got married. So we hadn't even been married a full year yet. And we decided we were going to have this giant sleepover with all of our married friends, and no children allowed. At that time, none of our friends had children, so we didn't have to worry about that. But just being able to bring people into our home, make great food, have great conversation, put into practice, often I know it can be really stressful just trying to plan, if you just have like one family member coming over, you're like, okay, is this room done? Is that room done? And God has blessed us with a beautiful home. And so it's like, are all of these bedrooms ready? Like, is there a place to sleep for everybody who's going to come over? Right. How do we decide who sleeps where,
Right.
And even leading into, okay, what's our goal for the following morning? They say there's a superstition or whatever that says like however you spend New Year's Day is how you're going to spend your year, and so for me, even though I'm not a superstitious person, like I want to start the year off right, and that's making sure that we maintain those relationships. So we always have breakfast, and I'm always grateful for our friends who are like, hey, what can we bring? And being able to create the menu and say, hey, can you bring 5 pounds of potatoes? Hey, can you bring 4 dozen eggs or whatever it is, so that we don't underplan or overplan or overpurchase or underpurchase, and being able to help even with just being we were small group leaders in our young professionals ministry for a little while, and being able to help with executing, hey, we've got the Thanksgiving banquet, or we have the Halloween, and what do we need? Like, what do we actually need versus, what do people think they should bring? If you just say, can you bring chips? And it's 400 people and people bring 2 bags of chips. That's not going to encourage anybody, and it's not about what's brought. It's about the heart behind it. And so making sure that there's an understanding, hey, we're asking for 18 bags of chips, at the $2 price point divided by, everybody in your group, really it's only $3 per person, and taking into account, group sizes, along with, even knowing like some financial background of people, like, okay, this group, they can afford a little bit more. So we're going to, allocate this more expensive item here, or this group, they can't, they're not big enough to support something large. So we're going to put, this more affordable item in their ballpark.
I gotcha. So what themes have you used for some of these events?
So our second favorite event is every fall from the Saturday after Labor Day until Halloween, my husband and I host a Harry Potter marathon. Okay. And so we watch one movie every Saturday from until Halloween. So there's exactly 8 Saturdays between.
Wow, this is planned
And
out.
yes, and so it's actually a tradition that I started 6 years ago. So before we were married, and I would just watch them by myself. It was just like my thing, my own personal thing. And then my husband was actually the one who was like, we should like invite people and decorate. And I am a huge Harry Potter fan. For many reasons, primarily like the political undertones of the series, but we can talk about that later.
We have to have a Harry Potter podcast.
Oh yes, absolutely. I'm all about that. But for us, it was really like, okay, who can we invite and what can we do? And so it started off, kind of small, and it's just grown into this like, hey, on the first movie we do, we have the keys, with the wings up, we have that, and we put the portraits, we put the portraits from Hogwarts up. And the second movie, we put the spider up. And the third movie, we do the feet from the Marauders map. And we're just constantly adding or changing. And, in the fourth movie, everything comes down and we put Christmas everything for the Yule Ball. And in the fifth movie, all of that comes down and we put up all of the proclamations from Umbridge, which if you're listening and Harry Potter, you're probably like, yes, this is awesome. We make quibblers and we do all of these things. On top of that, our food is themed. So, the first time we had one of the first major was we did Harry Potter's birthday cake, which is a big deal in the first movie. We didn't do that this year. We were kind of crunched for time, but we had somebody bring it one year and it was beautiful. Like it was so cool. I make this thing called Fluffy Chow, which is this puppy chow. We rename it. In the second movie, we make pumpkin juice, which it's a pretty big deal. In the second movie that we make butterbeer in the third one. So everything is, everything is molded and moved, and we do.
You're like using all your superpowers in one series.
Yes, exactly. So the whole month, and we put out our catering dish, and it's not just food on the table. It is a feast. We want really, because Hogwarts is about their feast. That's the Great Hall, and really making sure that, hey, not only are we doing this excellently, but are we making sure that we're inclusive? Is this an event that we feel comfortable not just inviting, members of our local church, but our other friends as well? And being able to have, so many people in our home who enjoy a fandom and build new relationships or continue in other ones. Like there's Rachel Adams. We call each other fall friends because we literally only hang out during the Harry Potter season.
That's hilarious.
But there's a bond there, and what's great is that we not only have Jesus in common, but we also have, a fandom or a hobby interest. And it's just really cool. It's really cool to see people be excited and encouraged as they come in, and especially super, super fan nerds. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you have this, or I can't believe you have that. And, even having like a sticker on the toilet that says "This way to the Ministry of Magic," because that's how you get to the Ministry of Magic. You're supposed to flush yourself down the toilet. Like, it is intense, and it is thoroughly planned. I
am now more Harry Potter educated.
Yes.
After this podcast.
Sorry, I didn't mean to turn it into the Harry Potter podcast.
Well, good. Let's switch gears. I'm glad you use it in such a powerful way. That's awesome. But let's switch gears. What has been the most surprising twist for an event that you have planned or attended?
So last April, I was attending my sister's wedding. She was her matron of honor. And unfortunately, at the last minute, their minister wasn't able to perform the ceremony.
Uh-oh.
And my sister was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Can you do it? And this is an hour before her ceremony.
Oh my goodness.
I literally had to isolate myself at this country club where there really wasn't a place to be isolated. And in the back of her guest book, I'm writing this lesson that I was like, okay, I've been to lots of weddings. I've had my own wedding. What are some of the things that I should be writing? What's important about love? What's the chronology of everything? And, I'm just gonna keep it short. My sister, she's not high maintenance at all. She was just grateful for, whatever. But it was interesting to not only like walk down, because she still wanted me to walk down the aisle, like, and then go stand in front and then like resume these duties. So
you didn't get relieved of one role and get put into another one. You were as a dual role.
Yes, I had also flown in that morning.
Wow.
So it was very exciting and intense. But what's cool is, now where somebody may have just had some notes, that they knew the couple well, like it was my sister, and I would have never thought like, okay, I'm going to officiate your wedding, sure. And in the state of New Mexico, like, they had to have somebody else like sign off. But I mean, just, it doesn't matter who does like the actual ceremony, just,
right.
Whatever. So I was the officiant and and I was the witness on the certificate. So I'm like, it's almost like a little Beetlejuicy.
What I like about it is now you can put that on your resume. So
right?
it's like event planner, caterer, then you have your education, then you got a wedding officiant.
Yeah.
So been there, done that, put it on the speaking portfolio.
Yes.
That's awesome. I think that's one of my favorite stories. All right, let's switch gears again with your degree in government, which is kind of fascinating, right? And it fit more when you were describing like the attorney, vision and pathway. But then with your degree in government, do you have present dreams for a government role or a public office or anything like that?
I do, actually. One of my dreams is to run for school board one day, and my hopes is, as my husband and I hopefully grow our family in the future, and whether it's through adoption or other means, I would love to be an active part of their education. And so, obviously that would start with PTA, and then eventually run for school board. But I already know that the changes that, that I could hopefully make on school board, it's not going to take effect for them. Usually it's going to take effect for the generation coming after them. But unless you're ingrained in it, that you've experienced it, on the public education, you can't really speak intelligibly. And I feel like school board, because of the struggles that teachers have, either with classroom management and size, or even just the funds to be able to provide supplies, that most teachers, if not all teachers, have to pay out of pocket to provide supplies for their classrooms. And sometimes it's everything from the theme of their classroom to, when they return in January and supplies is already running low, having to replenish it at, during an off-peak season in the retail side, which, instead of being able to buy paper for 15 cents, now they're paying, $1.25. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but there's a huge difference, including, expo markers and all of those things that should just be a part of what's given to them in their job. And they already do enough. They already work so hard and give more of their time than they should. They shouldn't have to also give more of their money, especially in Texas with the amount of property tax we pay.
Okay. All right, that's next level thinking. So you're thinking about, hey, what are the needs of the teachers? Where's the how are they taken care of? You're thinking about being an advocate for them and making sure that their role isn't more burdened, more burdensome than it has to be.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay, I see your dreams coming. I can see that happening. So let's switch gears again. Who would you say who was the biggest influence in your journey to get into catering on your own?
So entrepreneurially, I would definitely say my mom. My dad as well, but my dad always wanted to own a business. He would tell me even in college, like, hey, I need you to apply for a small business loan so we could do X, Y, and Z. And I was like, you're crazy. Like, Dad, I'm not doing that, And now thinking about it, I'm like, I should have just appeased him. Like, who knows? Like, we could have like this big, beautiful company, doing whatever. But my mom, I've seen my mom struggle and endure and fight and grow from being a teenage mother, at 17, 18, not being able to graduate school, to having her master's degree, and obtaining that literally the same weekend that I graduated from college, with my bachelor's. And then now seeing her grow to be one of the leading experts in safety and in OSHA regulations in the nation for artillery ranges. And I mean, this woman travels the country and she does trainings for CEOs, CFOs, and even, local police departments. And she not only does, she also has clients on top of that, working for the business that she does. And she just genuinely cares about the success of her clients. And she's dedicated to what she does, and she's driven, and she does so much more than your average person, and for me, my work ethic definitely comes from both her and my dad, and my dreams of continuing to grow, whether it's in my own business or continuing to be promoted, internally with the company that I'm currently with. It all comes down to work ethic and the importance of it. And you can have all the education in the world and not have the work ethic. And I see my mom, in her own way, like she has both her life and her doctorate, like in a at the professional level. And I would not be where I am without her example.
Right. And I love how you captured that. I mean, there's one thing to have expertise, but then and then to be lazy, but there's another thing to work hard, but then not have expertise. But you're talking about somebody who has both. She's hustled, she has the education down, but then she's getting the experience down, and she's working really hard. And to have somebody like that, it's always a powerful thing to have somebody like that give you the example to follow. It's such a powerful thing. That's awesome. I love hearing about your mom.
Yeah, my mom's awesome.
All right, now I want to hear about, to bring it in for a landing, I want to hear about the favorite quality about your husband, Juan. And I want to hear about Betsy as well. So maybe we'll start with Juan, then we'll go to Betsy.
Okay, sounds good. My favorite quality about my husband is his attention to detail, mixed with his memory. So when he was pursuing me and I would give him a detail about me, he would say, I'm going to put this in my Rolodex. And I just thought that was so funny. I always thought that was so funny. And me sometimes being a literal person, like I literally thought that he was writing stuff down and like putting it in a Rolodex. Like, right. I'm going to classify this. No, he just has the memory of, I don't even know, of an elephant or something, I don't know. Like this man, but he doesn't just remember everything. He remembers the important things. Sometimes the day-to-day things are not, as important to him to remember, but he remembers the details, like in the things that I always thought were quirky about me or were not valuable, or even just preferences. Like, for example, like we went to a wholesale company one time, and they had a vehicle there. And that specific vehicle was, when I looked at it, and it had some, it was like cool. It had like an it had the EcoBoost and all of this stuff. And I was like, what? I can have a mommy mobile and a race car, and I said that. And, that was right after we got married. And then 2 years later, not even 2 years, a year and a half later, he traded in his truck so that I could have my dream, my at that time, what was, my dream car, and being able to see that he remembered, like, just that one comment that one time, and he was like, yeah, I've been looking for it ever since. For the last 18 months, like, I've been looking for an opportunity for us to, make that dream come to fruition. Nice. So it's just a small, it's a big deal to me, but it's a smaller level.
Yes, I like it. I like it. Okay. All right, now what about Betsy? Who is Betsy?
So Betsy was my cow.
Betsy was your cow.
Yes. It was our family cow. We got her as a calf when I was very little. I probably was 6 or 7, maybe even younger. And so I grew up in a rural community, small town. We always had land.
Is that like a farm or a rural? What does that
mean?
Rural
agrarian. So we 2 stoplights, dirt road, several farms. We had like a festival celebrating our crop. It's called the Pinto Bean Fiesta. Like, I mean, that was the crop that, my area was most well known for, along with corn and pumpkins. So for me, my dad and my mom, because we didn't have a lot of money, they chose to invest, ways for us to have good food. And we had chickens and we had goats and and horses and all of these animals, really so that we could have a sustainable lifestyle. So Betsy, we acquired Betsy. She was so cute. She was a red Angus, a cow, and she actually gave us a calf every year without fail.
Wow.
So whether we sold the calf at auction because it was a female, to purchase a steer, which for those of you who don't know, that's usually the animal, that's usually the beef that you eat. You eat the steer. It's a castrated male.
Got it.
A castrated male cow. But it's not a cow. A cow is a female cow. But anyways, that's a whole other, this is not a...
I'm getting Harry Potter education.
Yes,
now I'm getting
sorry,
some cow
I apologize. So steers, what you usually eat, and my dad, we would raise it, and we actually weren't allowed to name them anything other than a type of food that they might give us. So we usually had T-bone. T-bone was like the favorite name. I think we had one ribeye, but usually T-bone was the name of our steer because my dad really, number one, he taught us how to feed them. So we got to bottle feed these calves and raise them. And he really, my parents really taught us like, hey, we raise this animal and then we have it butchered. And then, we live off of the animal for the year, and so Betsy, she never failed, man. Every year we had a calf. So
Betsy coming through in the
Betsy
clutch.
coming through. Yes, definitely. So I love Betsy. Awesome. She was so peaceful, and anybody could pet her.
Wow.
She was great. I mean, you would have thought she was like just a dog or something. I mean, she was so chill.
What's funny is I feel like I've known you for years. I haven't heard about Betsy, so the first time
that's
me
funny.
finding about Betsy. So good to know. Good to know. Well, good. Thank you for joining the podcast. Had a good time, sharing your story. That's what I'm passionate about, hearing somebody's story and then highlighting principles for my people. But I think your story is certainly an inspiration. I think the way you use your gifts and the way you're even blossoming in your role at work, but then you're using your gift in community. So I think a lot of people are influenced by you. And that's who I target, right? It's people who are influencers in the community and then people who are business leaders. And you happen to be both. So I'm grateful for you joining the show. If you're tuning in, one thing you can do to help us out is you can like the podcast, you can rate it well, leave a comment, share it, and don't forget to subscribe. It's the Strong Life Coach, where we speak life, coach life, write life, and lead life. Thank you.